Okay, we are live. Sorry, we were having technical difficulties today. My guest today is an LA-based violinist, film composer, and producer from the Huron-Wendat Nation in Wendake, Quebec. Her artistic and creative talents have led her to grace illustrious events such as Cannes Film Festival opening soiree for the premiere of Martin Scorsese's film Killers of the Flower Moon. She has garnered international recognition for her contributions to the film, music, and fashion industries, crafting impactful stories for film and television from her Wendat Records studio. She recently composed the score for season 3 of National Geographic's Life Below Zero, First Alaskans, and her interdisciplinary artwork has been featured in esteemed museums worldwide. And I want to welcome to the show today, Geneviève Gros-Louis. Hello, Geneviève. How are you?
Cray. Hello. It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. So you're from a First Nation tribe in Canada, correct?
Yeah, so I'm from Wendake, Quebec, and that's just outside of Quebec City. But recently just moved to LA, actually from Iowa, which is super random. But yeah, ended up here. All roads kind of led to LA, so I kind of had to follow that path, you know.
And what do you think of LA so far?
I mean, I've caught the bug. Like, I love it. The creative energy here is incredibly inspiring, and been making like lifelong friends in such a short amount of time. It's been a really beautiful experience so far. So I'm loving it, I must say.
How did you come about coming to LA? Was it a job, personal? How did you end up here?
Yeah, it's random because I was actually amidst moving to Paris at the time. And I was starting to get more inquiries for film scores, and everyone and their mother was telling me, why are you going to Paris? You should be going to LA because that's where movies are made. So I listened to them and I did that. And kind of in a 2-month period, when I made that decision, I up and left. I sold my house and I came out here. I had just my car full of my sound equipment and my cat. And then the rest of my stuff like came a month later in a U-Haul. So when I first got here, it was like really intense, but like it was like an incredible experience. I really just kind of went for it, and it's been a really incredible journey so far. So it's really spontaneous, I must say.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So you composed the music for season 3 of National Geographic's Life Below Zero, First Alaskans. Did you have that set up before you came to LA, or that was something you got once you got here?
Yeah, no, I was working remotely out of Iowa, my studio in Iowa, Wendat Records. And I just decided to make the move, and I ended up getting hired for now the main show, Life Below Zero. So I'm doing the current season of that right now. We're working on that. So yeah, it's been an incredible ride so far. And I just finished my first movie a couple weeks ago. So it's been a good time.
Okay, so tell me more about your movie.
Well, I don't know.
You can't tell me because you have an NDA,
yeah.
right?
Well, I'm not sure. I know I probably should have started off by saying in the coming weeks, I'll be able to tell you more about it, but right. I can tell you that I have finished it, and I'm really excited to share it with the world. And I think in the coming weeks, we'll be able to talk more about it.
Okay. So. Is it a thriller?
It's a documentary.
Drama? It's a documentary. Okay.
Yeah, it's a documentary. Yeah.
And is it about First Nations, or is it something totally different?
No, it's something completely different. It's about a Pulitzer Prize winning political cartoonist. So I had a really good time with that. I managed to use a kazoo quite a few times in it, actually. as an instrument. I had a lot of fun with that. Like, I mean, it's cartoons, you know, so you have to get really creative. And I have to tell you, like, after buying one thing like that on Amazon, now my Amazon recommendations is like full of ridiculous things like that. A whirly gag or whatever it is. And then like I have like train whistles showing up on my Amazon. So it's like you buy one thing like that and it's like all you see. So yeah.
I'm sure Amazon is now, you're probably getting weird messages on your phone as well too. So
the algorithm is a weird thing, I must say.
Definitely. Yeah. do lots of different things. So you do music, you do art, correct? Like you are in museums. Explain a bit about all of that.
Yeah, so I guess my journey into the film and television music world started with my activism work. So a few years ago, I performed at Santa Fe Indian Market for the first time in collaboration with Sky Eagle Collection, who's Dante Bisgrayson, is a really talented Osage veteran artist. And from there, I connected with some other designers. And from there, I ended up going to Paris Fashion Week with designer Mary Kelsey of Mika Clothing. And we wanted to tell a really powerful story on this large platform. It was really important to us to tell an important story when we're going so far away, and we quite literally were like at the front doorsteps of those people who originally colonized our people. So Mary had designed this collection of red dresses, and the red dresses are meant to honor our missing and murdered Indigenous relatives. And if you're not familiar with that particular movement, Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirited people are murdered at a rate like astronomically higher than any other group of peoples. It's really devastating. It's very traumatic. I think that, there's honestly not a single person that I know who doesn't have someone that has been affected by this epidemic, seriously. So it's something that's very much still present within our lives, and it's something that isn't talked about enough. So we wanted to bring that awareness to the fashion world, because we're storytellers by nature culturally. So when we're sharing our art, there's always some story behind it. So Mary had designed these red dresses, and we ended up filming this music video at Palais Versailles, the Eiffel Tower, and the Louvre. And we had a fancy shawl dancer, and this epic collaboration ended up going on display at the Washington History Museum and the Tacoma Art Museum for a year once we returned from Paris. And it took us even further. We performed and presented this project in Alaska as well, which is where Mary is from. And we were able to help raise $250,000 for a nonprofit that helps victims for justice against violence against women. So we're able to, through our art, tell this impactful story, but also able to bring awareness and even like help those in need. So that, honestly, that project changed my life because I was able to kind of see the ripple effect of what we were able to do. It was very inspiring to be able to work with other artists who are very passionate about telling these important narratives. And from there, I got an email one day in my website from National Geographic, and they asked me if they were interested in hiring me for their show Life Below Zero. And you get an email like that, and you're like, "There's no way," that's right? Yeah, I even looked up the credits, and I was like, oh, they totally did their homework. They put the right people, who signed.
Oh my God.
This is real. Literally, it's kind of embarrassing now because I'm like, oh snap, it is totally real. And they're like, let's have a Zoom meeting. And I was like, sure, let's have a Zoom meeting. And then we did. And I was like, yo, okay, all right. This is for real.
It's legit. It's legit.
Yeah, it was crazy, and I was like just blown away. But they had seen some of my work that I was doing and had reached out. And it was, seriously, it was a dream come true. And it was honestly, it was during COVID. So I started composing really heavily in COVID times because previously I was just a performer. I was performing with the Des Moines Symphony and an opera company. That's why I was in Iowa for so long. And when COVID hit, I went from 5 to 7 gigs a week to literally nothing for almost a year or something crazy like that. So just kind of dove heavily into composing, and it was it just kind of all happened and as it was meant to, everything just kind of snowballed, and I just kept going on that.
As my one teacher says, work gets work. So when you put it out there, hopefully it comes back to you.
Exactly.
Were you always in music? Did you start out in music as a child? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was a weird kid. I was an orc dork. I started on the violin. Actually, I started on the piano and I didn't practice it. And my mom was like, we're like, if you're not going to practice it, you're not going to play it, you know? So I think I was like maybe 8 or something when I was playing piano. And then when I was 10 years old, I was telling my mom I wanted to play violin, and she's like, no, you didn't practice piano. We're not going to get you a violin. And then a few months like into me like begging for a violin, I had built a violin out of like a tissue box, some toilet paper rolls, and like a rubber band. Like rubber bands were my strings. It was all duct taped together. It was really pathetic looking, honestly. And I like made a bow out of straws taped together.
You were very dedicated. You were very, very dedicated in
it's a
getting
little
this
insane.
violin.
Honestly, my mom was like, hey, mom, look at my violin. The next day she took me to get a violin, and I literally never put it down. So I studied violin really intensely for 20 plus years, and I went to school for it. I'm classically trained. I studied at McGill University.
Yeah, I remember. I'm from Canada originally, so I know.
Yeah, that's right.
That McGill is a very prestigious school. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a good time. I really remember my time in Montreal very fondly, and it was it gave me the chops that I needed to do what I do now, which is now scoring for full orchestra. So it's
so explain that. How did going to school prepare you for later on?
Yeah, I mean, so what I'm doing now is I'm scoring to like full orchestra now. So having played in an orchestra for now 20 years or so. Don't ask how old I am, please.
I won't. We live in LA, so I do not talk about time or age. Like people
Nobody
go,
needs
oh,
to know the answer.
no. Like I always my math for time and age is like I half it and then I quarter it. So yeah. It's all
there
good.
You go. That's perfect. I love that. That's the vibe, yo. But I was playing, in orchestras, and like I was learning without realizing it. We would be playing like these film scores, like John Williams. We'd play Harry Potter. We'd have like the movie on the screen, and I'm playing my violin, and like I'm just making these like little mental notes. I'm like, oh, when the cellos come in, it kind of sounds like there's something crazy going on, something like dark going on. I don't know why I'm doing this with my head, but that's what it is. And like without realizing it, I was just kind of internalizing that. And I just remember over time doing these concerts for years and years, it always moved me so much. And I would be watching movies and thinking, oh, well, it's so cool when the French horns come like this. It sounds so epic. It's like just something that kind of soars over the whole orchestra. And so that I didn't realize at the time was teaching me everything that I need to know for what I'm doing now with my career. So it's pretty crazy to kind of trace that full circle. But yeah, McGill was definitely a place to get some like intensive training, and then went to play in orchestras after that. And yeah, kind of all paths led here.
Cool. With instruments, as you mentioned, you were listening to certain instruments and they give you emotion.
Yeah.
Is that like, how do you approach emotion when you're composing something?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Like, do you watch? Like, so do you have the film or the TV show in front of you, or like as you're composing and you're going with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'll score to picture. You'll be looking at something when you're composing it. My favorite thing to do, honestly, is I'll even if I don't end up using my violin, I start with it. That's my voice. Like I'm not a singer very much, but I sing through my violin, and it's like my main instrument. So I might record a melody that way, and then I'm like, ooh, I really like that melody, but I want it to be like on an oboe or something like that. So I'll re-record it later with an oboe. But violin is very much like my way of communicating musically. And I play piano as well. And I also have like a really massive collection of indigenous instruments that I've been collecting over the last several years, just in my travels and whatnot. So that's also something that I really enjoy to kind of play around with, depending on the project.
What's your favorite indigenous instrument that you have found?
I'm so glad you asked. She rolls away dramatically. Okay, this is one of my newer ones. But this is called it's a white ash rattle. So this is actually from my nation. I just was in Wendake, is my nation in Quebec, for the month of June and July. Oh my gosh, it already feels like it was a long time ago. But I was out there filming, or not filming, but recording an album, working with some artists from my nation. And I happened to connect with a traditional instrument maker from my nation. And he makes rattles, and he makes a specific type of drum that is unique to my people. It's called a water drum. But this one was my favorite one because I've literally never seen anything like this. I've never heard anything like this. So it's made of white ash bark. And then as you can see, they kind of fold it over on itself. And it just like has this like almost kind of like, here I can do it. And
Yeah.
it almost sounds like rain. You know? It's like a very unique sound quality to it. And when I end up kind of playing around with some of these instruments, I really have a lot of fun messing with effects. So it's not necessarily going to sound like this, but I'll add like delays to it, and it just adds this texture. I don't know what I'm doing this with my hand, but it kind of adds like this whole other ethereal texture into the mix, and you're just listening to it and you're like, what is that? But like, it sounds so unique. It sounds so interesting. So that's something that I really enjoy, you know, doing in my music that I compose is incorporating Indigenous instrumentation within it.
Is your family supportive of your music? Were they always supportive of your music?
Oh yeah, it was like literally never anything else. I never wanted to do anything else. It was always violin. It was always music in some capacity. I mean, I think the only other job I've ever had other than music related was like when I was 14 years old, and I used to work at a skating rink, which is also like super Canadian.
I was a competitive figure skater, so I'm with
what?
you. Yeah.
Girl, me too. Okay. Yeah, it's like, tell me you're Canadian without telling me you're Canadian.
Exactly.
That's how you know. Yeah. But
I was a figure skater, yes.
Yeah, girl. Okay. All right. I did. I had
Cool.
some fun with that, and I did like synchronized skating and stuff. That was a vibe.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, very cool.
And with music, has your path been somewhat, I don't want to say easy, but you just sort of flowed through it, or did you have obstacles? Did you think you were going to make a living from it?
I don't know. I think the thing is that I just never stopped. I always believed, and I have been working so hard my entire life. I've worked really hard to practice. I mean, seriously, growing up, I did like 8 hours a day of practicing, which is not healthy, by the way. Don't do that. Seriously, but like I spent my time in the practice room, and I did the work, and now I'm seeing it on the other side here now. Like, yeah, of course I still practice, but like I've done a lot of that time already. I put the work in, and now it feels like things are going faster now, but I don't want to forget that I've literally spent almost 20 years in a practice room. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's come easily. I've worked really hard for a really, really, really long time. I played in symphonies. I played in opera companies. I used to gig around like as a freelance violinist. I think I've done every single kind of gig you could possibly imagine. Baby showers, which is a weird one. That's so random. Like, I don't understand why like people are like live music for a baby shower. I mean, why not though, right? Hey. So like, yeah, I kind of hustled a little bit like as an event musician for a while. And then, like I said, when COVID hit, it was kind of the blessing in disguise in a way, at least for me finding my path as a film composer, because I wouldn't have started to dive into composing had I had all of those gigs, you know? So everything just kind of shut down, and I started writing, and I realized that this was a greater love that I had than even for performing live, you know? So that is where it began to really skyrocket from there. I found my true love.
So events went away during COVID. So sort of explain how you ended up doing like that first bit of film stuff.
Well, I mean, I was composing at that time. I was collaborating with several artists, like I mentioned that where I went to Paris Fashion Week. And then I also did some collaborations with Dante Bisgrayson of Sky Eagle Collection, who was the one who took me to the Cannes Film Festival. And that happened like the summer before I started that was the summer I started working on for National Geographic. So it kind of all feels very connected. So Dante Bis-Grayson is a descendant of Henry Roan, who was one of the characters who was murdered in Killers of the Flower Moon. And it's a very, very tragic, very traumatizing thing for the Osage people. So that is why he brought me to Cannes. The day before the premiere of this film, we had a special like event and ceremony to honor the Osage people and to honor the story behind the film, because it, like, as he said, he called it heavy medicine. It's something that carries a lot of weight within the community. It's something that it's very intense, it's very triggering as well. So they were proceeding, they were just trying to again, honor the survivors and honor the victims for this. So he commissioned a collection of pieces from me that I composed to perform for this event. And he created this collection of dresses, and he ended up spray painting live on stage while I was performing. And it was just a very powerful moment. I don't believe there was a dry eye in the room, including myself. It was very intense. But I was very honored to be entrusted to like help tell that story through music. And he had written this really powerful poem that I also composed music for. And I think honestly, all of these things are what brought me to where I am now. I mean, I was storytelling through music at that point, basically writing film music without the film, but I didn't realize that it was like kind of in the same vibe. And then as I started to actually do it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this. I'm like obsessed with it. And now that I have had a few experiences, I am honestly addicted to it. It's so much fun to be able to bring music, in the story to life through music. I think my favorite part is like kind of thinking up the instrumentation of a project and closing my eyes and like, what do you hear to help bring this visual alive, Right. So that's what I was saying about the kazoos. It sounds ridiculous, but it's about a political cartoonist. So like it kind of it legitimately it did, especially for that scene. But
so you're at the Cannes Film Festival, with Killers of the Flower Moon, and you are incorporating your heritage and First Nation stories into your performance. Do you ever feel somewhat conflicted of merging, your heritage with basically, the people that's, murdered your people or suppressed your people, or how do you navigate all that?
I mean, my heritage is who I am. It's a part of me. It's also a part of who I am as an artist. So I think of it as merging because it's my voice. So I'm just telling the story that I need to tell and using the instrumentation that feels appropriate, that feels right. I mean, so here's a really great example. When I was working on Life Was Your First Alaskans, there was a lot of Indigenous representation in that show. I mean, it was all centered around Indigenous people. And I was given a scene once where there was a young girl playing an alutic drum. It's a very specific type of drum. It's like a large circular drum. I'm not doing a great job of visualizing it here, but it's a pretty big drum. It's also very thin. And there was no sound to it. And I was like, oh man, like, I don't know what that sounds like, but I really want to make sure that I honor it, because the people that are going to watch this, that know what that drum sounds like, they need to hear the right sound come out of this drum. I can't just use any drum. So I'm really fortunate to have had the opportunity to collaborate with an artist in Alaska. I sent him a screenshot of the drum and I was like, yo, Derek, do you have this drum? And he's like, I got 5 of them. Like, give me a minute. Like, and he proceeded then and he had a recording studio, very professional, and like he's an incredible drummer. Like, it's just everything like aligned. And this was like all over the course of like a couple of hours, we managed to figure it out. And I was like, wow, this is insane. So we managed to record that drum sound, and he built like pretty much a library for me to use, which I still to this day use as I'm working on the music for this, because it's a very specific sound. It's a very specific instrument. to the Indigenous people, like that we're trying to tell the story of. So those little details may seem like a little detail, but it matters. It matters in the representation. It matters in the story you're trying to tell. It matters in like honoring those voices. So I think for me, it's just a matter of honoring the story and doing what I can to bring that to life.
You're working on a new album. When's that going to be coming out? And what's it about? Tell me more. Tell me more.
Yeah, thank you. So Wendat is the name of the album. Wendat means I am Wendat, but it also means we are Wendat because there's no differentiation. It's just we are Wendat and Wendat means island dwellers. We're people of Turtle Island. And Turtle Island is a name that's often associated with North America, and that stems from our creation story. And yeah, we could get into that if you want to. You want me to talk about that?
I didn't know that North America was a turtle.
Oh yeah, it totally is. Oh my God, that was a dad joke.
Totally.
It totally was. Yeah, no. But yeah, so turtle, the story, like I'll give you just like the brief synopsis of it. So I come from a matriarchal society. Sky Woman is she falls from Sky World, and after like looking down this like there's a hole at the base of this tree, and she kind of Alice in Wonderland styles falls down this hole and is descending toward this planet that kind of looks like Waterworld, without like all of the like Exxon like carriers, obviously, you know. But anyways, so she's descending to this Waterworld, and these geese slow her descent as she's coming down, and there are some animals in the water who see her falling, and they say, we need to find land for her to stand on so she can live. And then the animals then proceed to dive down under the water and go all the way to the seabed floor to bring up dirt to put over the back of the turtle so she can have land to stand on. But many of them died, and they couldn't bring back the dirt. And finally, one of them made it back up, but he was dead. It was the muskrat, and he had this dirt in his hand. And they put this dirt on the back of the turtle, and from his sacrifice, it grew, and it kept growing, and it kept growing. And this is actually how Turtle Island was created. So by the time Sky Woman descended and she landed, she was able to stand on land, North America. So that's a very, very basic, very fast version of that story. It's much longer. There's a lot more details, but that's where that comes from. But Wendat ND is a collection of pieces honoring my people. So I was just given a grant from my reservation, Wendake, called Tsianzia. The Tsianzia grant is a grant to perpetuate the culture, perpetuate the knowledge for the next generations to come. And I'm really honored that they selected me because I find our music to be incredibly beautiful, but I don't have enough recordings of it. There's not a lot of ways we can really digest our music outside of us singing, you know, in a community. And there are definitely some incredible Wendat artists, but I want more content. I want more of our music. I want to be able to listen to it while I'm driving down, you know, the highway or something like that.
405 during rush hour.
Exactly. I just want to jam out to it. So I had this idea of taking some of our traditional songs, taking some of our traditional stories, and composing some orchestral arrangements of it. And I'm actually also working with some singers from my nation, a couple of people, Andoua Laveau and Geneviève Gros-Louis, who's my cousin, who's an incredible singer. Seriously, like, oh my gosh, you guys, like, I can't wait to share this. But so it's a collection of works where we are essentially like remixing some of our like social songs in like adding synth.
Okay, when you're saying social songs, what do you mean exactly?
Yeah, it's a good question. So for example, one of the songs is called Chant Ancestral. It's a welcoming song. It's something that would be sung like in a large group. It's not a ceremonial song. So there's a difference between social and ceremonial. Like our ceremony stuff, we do not share with the world. That's not something that I can and I'm not comfortable sharing with. So the songs that I am working with and the things that I am arranging and reworking are social songs. These are ones that we sing like all the time, and they're like everyone knows them. You know, like when one person starts singing it, they'll just like start singing along kind of vibe. But I really like some of the melodies are so haunting. Like I just remember, like as I was listening to some of our music over the last couple of years, I'm like, oh my gosh, the melody is just unbelievably haunting. It's so beautiful. And I was like, I could hear these like arrangements on the violin, on the piano, having the strings, having like the drums, and like even like I said, I was even integrating some synth instruments to kind of bring it almost like contemporize. And I use quite a bit of our like Wendat instruments in there as well.
You don't want to forget the rattle, right?
No, for real. And I have like so many more where that came from too. But no, it's a really good vibe. And like another one of our songs, for example, Hino is the name of it, and that tells the story of the genesis of thunder. So I'll give you the quick download of that because I'm like a nerd for this stuff, man. Seriously. Like, and this is again, it's all about storytelling. Like everything is kind of all connected. You know, so our story for Hino is Hino was like this brother, and I mean, I can't remember how many siblings he had. Let's say he had like 6 brothers or whatever. Okay. And he was always like the annoying one that, you know, he never like, he didn't really do anything horrible. He was just like the annoying little brother that like, they just were just like, oh, you know, like, you know, stop it. He was the one that would like jump in a pool and splash everyone on purpose. You know, that kind of energy.
Yes.
Yeah, one of those, you know.
Like a little menace, a little troublemaker.
Yeah, that's Hino. Okay, so that's Hino. Imagine that energy. Okay, so Hino went to an island with his brothers one day, and they were going to hunt so that they could bring food back to their family. And his brothers told him he needed to crawl across the island very quietly, so that when he gets on the other side, when he shouts very loud, he can scare all of the animals towards his brothers who are hunting for him. Okay. Now Hino being like this little troublemaker menace, he didn't have the patience to make it all the way across the island. In fact, he only made it halfway across the island. So he's in the center of this circle, right? And do you know what happens when he shouts? All the animals disperse everywhere in a million directions. You know, they don't go in any direction. He didn't have the patience. So he's like, I'm here.
He wasn't a good assistant for the hunt.
No, but this is the sad part. His brothers were so angry with him that they abandoned him on this island. They were so mad with him that they left him. They said, we don't have food. You just stay here and you think about what you've done. So he started to cry. And this is what we know of as rain. And then he started to shout for his family. And that's what we know of as thunder. So anytime you hear thunder, it's Hino calling out to his family that left him abandoned behind. He's very sad. So it's like a very sad story. But so I took this story, and it has a really beautiful melody, and bringing it to life musically, I actually I do a lot of field recording as well. So like when I'm traveling and stuff.
So what do you mean by you do field recording?
Yeah, I know. Like I'm a weirdo in the woods with a microphone. That's what that means.
Okay, that's not actually there is some restaurant somewhere that I saw online that does that, and you'll be eating and you'll be hearing like birds chirping.
Yeah. Literally, that's what it is. Yeah. So when I was living in Iowa, I was very blessed to have like an insane amount of thunderstorms. So I collected some really epic thunder sounds over the last 5 years or so. So I was like, I just know someday I'm going to need this for something. And turns out I did. So for this piece, I actually use thunder sounds as an instrument in the music, like as a drum. It's actual thunder. So, and it's telling the story of our thunder. So it's like very symbolic, and it also just sounds epic. Honestly, it's really hard to beat Mother Nature as an instrument. Honestly, she got it. She knows. Yeah. So
very cool.
Yeah.
So this album is going to be released when exactly?
Yeah, on November 1st. It will be available to stream on all streaming services, and it's also the first day of Native American Heritage Month. So it just feels like the perfect day to release it. Again, it's like a collaborative album celebrating Wendat heritage. So I am really excited, and I have a lot of people from my nation are really excited to like hear it as well. I'm just like, I'm also really nervous because like I really want, this carries so much weight, this project. I want to do it right. So I've been collaborating with a lot of different artists, and I've been speaking with a lot of like elders from my community to ensure that I am taking all the necessary steps to honor our music in the appropriate way.
I just want to say hello to Sean Wynn, who has commented that he's loving your stories about the thunder. So he's
thank
commenting.
You. Yeah, Wank, I appreciate that.
When you came to LA, you have a lot of positive feedback. Is there anything that you would tell someone that was wanting to move to LA to pursue a career in music? Any sage advice you would have for someone wanting to do that?
Sage advice. I love that. There you go.
Sorry, I had to make a little plug.
I know. I love it. I was wondering if you're going to say that, and she did not disappoint. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it was just following my heart, following what I love doing. I feel very fortunate to like be where I am now, but like taking that leap of faith, it was terrifying. I'm not going to lie. I was terrified. I kind of still am, but like I have zero regrets. I mean, I kind of knew for the last 5 years that I probably was going to end up here, but I didn't know when. And then when I made that decision and like 2 months later, I ended up out here, was still terrified. But like I said, it's been nothing but a beautiful experience so far. And I'm learning so much. I'm growing so much as an artist. This like community of creatives, this community of just this artist community. Like I constantly feel inspired to create, and that's something that I've never quite experienced before, at least, where I've lived before. So this is, I mean, I would say if you're thinking about it, go for it. Why not?
You mentioned a bit before about going to con for Killers of the Flower Moon and performing, and that was through someone you knew, through relationships. Yeah. How important is relationships and networking to a career, or to you specifically?
I mean, it's incredibly important. But I think for me, what it comes down to is making friendships. I want to work with people that I connect with. I want to work with people that I can laugh with. I want to work with people that I feel inspired with, that I can grow with. And I feel like that's how we got here is by finding people that you vibe with, people that you can create with and continue to create with. That has honestly been like life-changing, so make friends and make art with your friends and see where that takes you.
When someone comes to you with an opportunity, how do you decide what to say yes to or what to say no to?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm really fortunate to be able to work on things that I want to work on. I mean, I enjoy a challenge as well. I enjoy trying new genres and different projects of that sort. So, I mean, I feel, I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that question. I mean, I've just been really fortunate enough to have like some really awesome things come down the pipeline. And I'm like, absolutely, let's do it, and if not, then, we'd be honest about that as well. So.
No worries. You don't have to answer every question. I mean, sorry. Is there someone that's been very pivotal in your success or driving you towards your career? Anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah. My violin teacher, honestly, he saved my life, like with music. Seriously, like Vernon Summers was his name. He was a violinist with the National Symphony Orchestra at the Kennedy Center for, I think, 40 years it was.
Oh, wow.
But when I started studying with him, I was in, I believe, middle school, and He became like the closest thing to a dad that I ever knew. I kind of came from a traumatic like upbringing, and he created a safe space for me, which I think is why I also ended up pouring my whole soul into my violin. And he saw that and he created this space for me. And because of that, I just like fell in love with the violin. And he created, I don't know, he taught me how to be a musician, but also he taught me how to be an artist as well, which is so much more too, like how to respect yourself as an artist and how to grow as an artist and how to collaborate with others. I would not be here if it weren't for him. So shout out to Vern.
That's very sweet. Thanks for sharing that. When you, sorry, when you approach a project, and you were just talking about collaboration, how do you stay true to sort of what you want to do, you know, with the music versus like you're working for National Geographic to what there's, you know, is there ever a conflict in what your vision is compared to maybe the producers of the show?
No, honestly, I think it's very much like I said, like a collaborative experience. So like there are discussions, like I'll work with editors and they'll kind of tell me the vibe that they want, you know, but I understand it and I see it. And I feel like honestly, in those moments, I'm learning in those moments. Like I want to know what they see, what they hear, as I go into a scene or something like that, because it can help guide me. And I mean, I can learn in those moments, but I've never had an issue not doing something that I'm like kind of hearing, because I feel like this is such a process of like artists coming together and people respect each other's like artistic like opinion. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful, is that you bring all of these really talented artists together, and together we can create something that you could never have done by yourself, you know? So there's very much a sense of community and camaraderie in that way.
Are there any performances that are coming up for you anywhere?
You know, I just had several actually. I am back in my studio right now for a bit. I'm sure I have some coming up, honestly, off the top of my head. Actually, no, I do. I have one in coming up in November, I think, in New Mexico. I'm doing a Indigenous music and tattoo festival out there. And then just a bunch of other random things coming up. I think I'm hoping to do something out here in LA for my album release. So stay tuned for that. But otherwise, okay. I just kind of had like my full summer of like shows. I was just in Santa Fe for a week for Indian Market, which is like the largest Indigenous art, music, film festival in North America. So I had several performances there. And then I just did a show at the Tacoma Art Museum with Mary Kelsey from Mika. So it's like, now it's time to kind of like settle in, and I have to finish up some of these projects that I have in the works, but I'm really excited to be back and to really dive into it.
With National Geographic, you started on, I mean, it's the same overall show, but you've gone to different series within the whole. Can you explain that? I don't know.
Yeah.
If I'm explaining it very
No,
well.
it's okay. I understand the confusion. So last year I was working on Life Flow Zero First Alaskans, which is a spin-off of the main show. So there were a few spin-off shows. That was one that was very specific around Indigenous people, Indigenous First Alaskans. Now I have moved to the main show. I think it's the 13th season that I'm working on right now. So that one has been around for a minute, and we're actually like up for an Emmy right now in cinematography. Oh, wow. So it's pretty exciting.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you're doing the next season of that show.
Yep. So I'm working on it right now. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. Congratulations. I hope
Thank
to
you.
see you guys win an Emmy.
Yeah.
And how do we find you online? Where do we go?
Yeah, you can find me on social media at The One Woman Symphony, or you can find me on all of the music streaming platforms under my name, Geneviève Gros-Louis, which I know is a mouthful, but thank you. Thanks for trying.
No worries. Yeah, I mean, I did take French for 4 years, but yeah, that's too much for me at this point. I mean, I don't think I did too bad in the intro, but I mean,
I get Gross-Louis like more. Geneva Gross-Louis is like my alter ego for real, or like
Geneva
Guinevere.
Gross.
I don't know how people come up with Guinevere, but like I get that one more times than I care to admit. But yeah,
I can see that happening. Geneviève, right?
Yeah, you got it. Look at
Thank you.
you. Okay.
Thank you for being here today. And I enjoyed our time. I enjoyed hearing about the origins of North America that I did not know about. And I hope to see you out and about. I'm sure we'll run into each other soon. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And see you next Wednesday. And
See you, Winkaman. Thank you so much.
thank you. Thanks. Thanks.